Let me tell you, man. I mean, okay, let's play the dark game.
Oh,
let's go dark.
They're there.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So, I'm on a flight yesterday, and my pilot is the pilot I like. You actually met this pilot.
Met him. The Israeli guy? I love that.
He's the pilot.
Yeah.
So, I see him. I said, "How you doing?" Not good. I said, "Okay." I said, "What do you think about what's going on?" Last time he was with us when we went to Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So,
I like him.
Yeah. So how you doing? Obviously not good. Family. How's family? Not good. Family in Israel. How about this? How about that? How about this? Anyways, I can't tell you everything we talked about because I found out who he is and what he did, his job in Israel.
Oh,
very
wow.
interesting. Very serious guy. He says to me, "You know what, though? The Israelis community right now is very happy with Joe Biden." I said, "Really? Tell me why." He says, "Because he's got our back, and he's shown so many great things he's doing. You know, Blinken is going there, and he went and shook hands with Netanyahu, and you know they're showing support, and they're with us, and they're saying pro-Israel, and they're saying this, and even Jean-Pierre, came out and said a couple words.
The squad. She went after the squad.
That's right, which is kind of weird, right?
Crazy.
So okay, so you're sitting there, you're like, maybe the center people are like, okay, these guys sound normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's play dark. Did you need something like this for you to create a war to the point where the re-election percentage of a president goes so high when there's a war so you can get re-elected? Maybe. Is it because the amount of chaos you learned in 2020 the elections was so chaotic, so it increases the chance of you being able to win another election because the more chaotic it was, you can tell people what we're going to be doing and they're already accustomed to it. Maybe they'll be more open-minded to it. Maybe. Is it because maybe even on the other side, for me, that I think about Netanyahu and Israel, first of all, who has the best secret intelligence in the world?
Mossad.
You mean to tell me?
No.
You mean to tell me these guys have been that low-key underground for a year,
Nope.
built a city like the one in Israel, and they trained their guys to go in and how to break into homes and how to take people hostage? And you're telling me you didn't know? Seriously? And Egypt comes out. By the way, the story came out. It's like, well, we told them, we warned them that something was taking place. Another story came out about Egypt. Rob, if you tell me what page it's on.
Then they said they didn't. They're going back and forth.
Yeah, and they're saying they didn't. You're like, so make up your mind. Did you know or did you not know? So what is really going on? So then I go a layer deeper, and I'll turn it over to you. Is, okay, did Israel almost, because I'm talking to this other guy, and he says, I said, you realize what happened in 2014? He says, yeah. I said, 2014 when they, the three girls were kidnapped, and then, whatever happened, raped, travesty.
Horrible.
And then Israel comes back and kills 2,000 people. He said, it should have been 20,000. It should have been 200,000. So I said, where are you going with this? He says, well, listen, here's what I'd like to see happen in Israel. What's that? Only Jews live in Israel. Nobody else. We don't need to coexist. It's just not going to work out. Is this a way for Netanyahu's legacy to be he eliminated Hamas? Is this his way for saying, now I got the war, I got the card, I got the,
mandate,
get out of jail card for me to go straight up 100,000 on the blockade of Gaza Strip, 300,000 reservists you put up there. Now we're going to go groundwork. We're going all freaking out because the world gave us the permission to do so. Is that what it is? I don't know. I just keep continuing to have a lot of questions the more I think about it because so these guys are coming up. So what, are we going to have another 9/11? And they're going to come and do what? They're going to go into your community. What are they going to target next? Where are they going to go next? What's going to happen next? Oh, can we? It's not a big deal. It's never happen again. Well, that's what we thought it was never going to happen, 9/11. Before 9/11 happened, nobody thought 9/11 was going to happen.
Yep.
So I just have way too many questions that makes me think about what the motives are. And if we go dark, I'll put all those things out there.
Yeah.
How did these guys not know this was taking place?
So I've been to Israel many times. The whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still have the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that's an IDF soldier, right? The whole country is surveilled. And so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu was basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here, but I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question. The whole country is the IDF. The whole country is.
Yeah.
And you're trying to tell me that they're going to concerts and kibbutzes and schools and by reports 6 hours. Let's say it's 3 hours.
That's suspect. Go ahead, Rob.
It's also not like a right-wing reporting. This is from the New York Times. The long wait for help as massacre unfolds in Israel.
9
I can't think of a
hours.
more liberal news outlet than the New York Times.
And by the way, I'm actually very pro-Israel. So let me be very, so I'm not exactly.
Well, I think we all are.
No, I just want to make sure my position is clear here. But so Patrick, there are other explanations. It's possible that the Netanyahu government was double-crossed by bad agents. Okay? That's dark, but it's not as dark as what we're talking about. Okay? Another aspect is that Netanyahu might have traitors in his government, like legitimate traitors that have infiltrated. I was texting with some senior people in the IDF, and they said, Charlie, can't say too much, but let's just say the same problem you have with the left in America we have here in Israel. So there's something to think about. Just something to think about, right? Is that maybe there's some people within those intel agencies that aren't as sympathetic. Or maybe, Patrick, maybe they might have gotten a tip. They might have gotten whispers, but no one thought it would be 1,200 Jews dead. That's a potential, right? Because here's the essence of it. The essence is this. This is the closest thing to the Holocaust that any of us have lived through. But the fact is now Bibi and the Israeli hard-right government has a mandate. I got to be careful the way I say this. They're going to try to ethnically cleanse Gaza.
Yep.
I mean, I don't use that term lightly, okay? They're talking about basically removing 2.5 million people from there, okay? And honestly, they have a mandate to go seek justice and revenge. They do. This idea that they need to have a truce or a peace treaty, that's morally crap after you see women and children be burned alive and dragged to the streets. But there are some serious questions here, Patrick. And let me tell you, my pattern recognition over the last 5 years has become pretty sharp. COVID, Maui fires, Epstein. When I see a story and it doesn't click, our guts are usually right.
Yeah, this one's very weird.
Can I comment on the when you use the term ethnic cleansing, that will make the hairs on the back.
I'm not
of your
accusing them of that.
I'm not. I'm just saying that term. I actually did some research specifically on that because that is a very slippery slope. And if you actually want to talk about what Jews and even Christians should be most fearful of, Muslims as well, is the concept of ethnic cleansing.
So I just want to be very sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
I'm saying that's what they're going to be accused of.
Correct.
But if there are some people in public life in Israel that, Patrick, what did your pilot guy say? I want only Jews in Israel, right? Okay, that is a form of ethnically cleansing because 20% of Israel is Arab Muslim.
Correct.
20%.
And people don't know that. And I've been to Israel several times. I was there a few months ago, and I saw the protests.
Yes.
If you don't have to be expert at Israeli politics to understand the divisiveness of politics, especially in America. We understand like Republicans, Democrats, blacks, white, whatever it is. Similar in Israel, there's the liberal faction, mostly based in Tel Aviv, and more the conservative faction in Jerusalem and throughout the country. And obviously, the more orthodox you are, the more you're inclined to be more right-wing thinking. But I think civil war is a little premature, but there is major contention going on there.
The country was at a fissure point. Yeah. Right. It was splitting.
No doubt. Just like there was calls for potential civil war here. I sort of think that's a little aggressive.
But you would agree it was hot. The country was hot.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No, just like the BLM riots here.
Yeah. It was not a time for unity in Israel.
The thing that I think just to think about when you talk about, I'm not saying you're accusing anything, that you just use the term. So the concept of ethnic cleansing is the biggest fear of the Jewish people. Okay? It's the whole reason that Israel was founded, because of the ethnic cleansing that occurred throughout Europe for millennia, right? Obviously culminating with World War II. But there's no doubt that Israel could wipe out Gaza at any given point. But they do not want to participate in ethnic cleansing. Now, they would love to annihilate the terrorists. But if you actually talk about what's going around the world today, and this is what Israel needs to kind of take note of.
That's what I was talking about, Patrick. I'm sorry to interrupt.
This is a protest.
But in the summer, this every day, there were people in the streets.
I saw this. July of 2023.
The country was separating.
This is such a hotbed issue right now. But if you talk about ethnic cleansing, look at what's going on in Azerbaijan and Armenia. Something that
110,000 Armenian Christians.
Nobody's talking about that.
Yeah.
We've seen over the last couple decades, what happened in Bosnia. They were Bosnian Christians were killing Muslims. We've seen what's going on in Myanmar. Nobody talks about that. Okay. Christians are actually, there's an article right here from the Cato Institute. Who are the most persecuted people in the world? Well, it's actually Christians. You've probably done your research on this.
I talk about it all the time.
You go to Afghanistan, you go to Iraq, you go to Iran, you go to China, you go to Nigeria. They're killing Christians. Here it is right here from the Cato Institute.
That's right.
Okay, so the whole concept of ethnic cleansing, I think temperatures need to go down, because it's not egalitarian. People are killing people for multiple reasons.
And here's Israel's difficulty, is that Hamas, they build their headquarters under hospitals.
Correct.
They use humans as human shields. Yeah. And so civilians are going to die, and that is a tragedy. And Hamas brought this upon themselves. My wish, my plead to Israel is be precise, be focused in your retaliation. You have a moral right to go and seek the blood of the people that did this. Mm-hmm. What I think would be bad for Israel, and I have a heart for Israel. I can't tell you what it did. It made me a stronger Christian in a way I can't even tell you, right? Be able to see where our Lord rose from the dead. My heart for Israel is that they don't overreact. And Patrick, you hear what I'm saying here, right?
Fully, that's my concern, because if they do, again, if they do overreact, I'm more coming from a place of thinking this was intentional. If they don't overreact, then this wasn't intentional. Meaning, if all of a sudden you see an all-out annihilation.
What do you mean by intentional? That they knew it was going to happen?
That no, when you're asking about the stand down 6 hours and 3 hours, then why did you? What intel are you getting? So we're on the same page.
Fair enough.
Yeah. All I'm saying
I just wanted to make sure I understood.
If there is a major attack, it was intentional. If there's a major attack. And by the way, the number in the last however many years, the biggest number they have is 2,000, right? The Palestinians that died. That's the biggest number they've had. And in Gaza, if you look at the Gaza Strip if you can pull up the map so you can kind of show Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and where Hezbollah is coming from Lebanon. Yeah, but in West Bank, it's a different story, because in West Bank, at least 42% of Palestinians there support Hamas, but in Gaza it's 58%.
And so Hamas really isn't in those regions.
Yeah, it really is not in those regions. So this is Gaza Strip, all the way to the left.
Can I emphasize though?
Sure, go for it.
Look at the cameras, the radars. Patrick, not only did they go in,
that's what I'm saying.
No, but hear me out here. Not only did they go into Israel, they got out of Israel with hostages.
Yeah, 100 hostages.
So you would think, let me just hear me out. There's a penetration of your border wall, okay? That you guard on a holy day, the 50-year anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. And you would think, hey, they're going to come back. Let's make sure that doesn't happen. Let's mobilize some forces. And it is not quite, but it is close to the North Korean demilitarized.
What's weird about what you're saying that gets even more credibility is you're a pro-Israel guy.
No, that I want to be very clear.
No, fully, I know that. So I want to make sure the audience knows this. So for you to question that and for me to question, I'm like, sitting here saying, how did you not know this was taking place? But again, going back to it, so let's go to a different angle here. Okay, So, many times when crisis happens, we sit around, oh my gosh, we immediately go to World War III. Like we have a yearning for,
Armageddon.
There's almost a little bit of a yearning people have for, oh my God, what would a civil war really look like, bro? That's like crazy. I get to take a month off from work.
Scary,
like, instead and play cards all day.
I have all these guns. I want to use them.
These are people that have never gone to a country that's been at war.
Or never experienced war.
No, it's the worst thing human beings.
Dude, trust me. Like I posted a picture the other day. My sister texted me, Paulette. I'm like, how I always talk about putting the, tapes on the windows?
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that picture.
Yeah.
It's like, that picture was, Paulette's like, look at this picture. What do you see unique in this picture? I said, oh, it's pretty cool. It's you and I when we were kids. She says, no. Look at the glass. I'm like, oh, shit.
Just in case they get...
This is the tapes. This is me in Iran with my sister when we would get bombed. One day we got bombed 167 times, okay? My dad would put tapes so the window wouldn't explode on our faces because that's our bedroom. Like I'm on this side.
Jeez,
and then the other side is our rooms. And he's like, hey, if something happens, so you look at these stories. You're like, yeah, I mean, kids are going through it, but go a little bit deeper with this. Let's go a little bit deeper. Let's go next step here with this. Okay, what is truly the worst case that's going to happen? We have a fascination and an obsession with market crash, collapse, war, civil war. This is the last election. This is the most important election of all time. I'm telling you, or else we're going to lose America, right? Of course, all of these things is a way of controlling fear, urgency. I get it. There's a certain element of, motives behind it that's effective. But how ugly do you think this actually can get? Like the domino effect. If this happens, these guys react. Then if these guys react, these guys have to react.
That meme where it like all starts with, a mean tweet and it ends in nuclear war.
Yeah.
You ever see that meme?
Yeah.
Domino effect.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know which one I'm talking about. Sorry to interrupt. But yeah.
So how ugly can this get?
Look here. So let me also make sure I criticize both sides. Okay. So I'm going to criticize the people that, do the paragliding and it's sick. Lindsey Graham is an irresponsible lawmaker. For what he's saying. Bombing Iranian oil depots, this thing could get wildly out of control very, very quickly. The last thing America needs is a kinetic war against Iran, an 87 million person country that has a pretty fierce fighting spirit, a country that's 5 times the size of Iraq. 5 times the size of Iraq. We're going to go start bombing oil depots? Yeah, that could get Russia further involved, China involved. Yeah, look, the quote-unquote Armageddon situation is that for Israel, the Armageddon situation is that they overreact so much that they lose their Arab neutrality. Right now, they have neutrality with Egypt. If they overreact, they could lose that. They have warm conversations. I won't say a peace deal yet with Saudi Arabia. They could lose that. Jordan plays ball because America demands they play ball. They could lose that. Syria, Bashar al-Assad, he acts as if it doesn't exist, but that could change in a moment's notice, right? Lebanon via Hezbollah is already there. They could be all of a sudden dealing with a 15-country invasion of Israel.
Can they handle that?
They have in the past. I mean, the Six-Day War, the Yom Kippur War. The Yom Kippur War, for example, they were invaded from every direction. At the Balfour Declaration, when they became a country in 1948, every Arab country declared war on them. Yeah. And they almost lost the country. And to their credit, they held it off and they earned the right to be Israel. But I don't know what that looks like. No one does. And you're talking about countries that have some form of nuclear weaponry as well. Saudi Arabia doesn't have a total nuclear developed bomb, but they have some sophistication, far more than Iran. But yeah, look, I mean, I'm not an alarmist, but if we take the path of Nikki Haley and Lindsey Graham, like we're dramatically increasing the chances of a world war.
Can we stay right there on the Iran situation? Obviously, this is very close to home.
Lunatic wants World War III.
It's a PBD.
He's a lunatic.
That picture, I think, says 1,000 words. The tape on the windows, you're used to this. When you've seen bombings like this, when you've seen death like this, you wish this upon nobody. But the biggest question is, like, we're so focused on what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, granted. Obviously, the big picture, I think we can all agree, is what's going on with China, right? That's the big picture here. But, in this region, the tip of the spear with all these issues is Iran. So as much as Lindsey Graham sounds
like a lunatic,
like a wild man, warmongering, wild man, John Bolton-esque type person.
They're the same person.
He is at least bringing up the fact that Iran needs to be dealt with. At the heels of all this, what's going on, and you bring up like what
So that's important.
The next 5 moves of Israel is they're at the final innings of this deal with Saudi Arabia. Obviously, Saudi Arabia and Iran are enemies, Shia, Sunni.
It's irreconcilable.
Right. So what must be done with Iran at this point?
Well,
because to be clear, they're the ones that fund Hamas. They're the ones that fund Hezbollah. They're the greatest exporter of terrorism around the world.
True.
They're chanting death to America.
Death to America after we get them $6 billion.
Yeah.
What do we do there?
The first thing is we must remember that we, the American government, are the reason why Iran is radical. We did this. They had a democratically elected leader that we did not like. I believe his name was Mossadegh.
Mossad.
Yeah, right?
Mossadegh.
Yeah, Mossadegh, thank you. And we didn't like him because he wanted to nationalize the oil. Specifically, the Brits didn't like it.
50s. This is
what year was this, PBD? Okay, gotcha. This is before the show.
Yes, he was very popular.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And look right there. Even in Wikipedia, 1953 Iranian coup d'etat aided by intelligence agencies of the UK and United States.
Weird.
Got it.
Okay? So then we put the Shah back in, if my memory serves me correctly, who was sick and unpopular, meaning he was actually suffering. Physically sick. And we paved the way for the most radical elements of Islam from a country that, Patrick, you know it better than I do. The Persian people are the most entrepreneurial. They're some of the smartest people that have really been living under radical Islamic captivity for many decades. Why am I bringing this up? Sometimes your intervention can make things far, far worse. Sometimes intervention is moral and necessary. Our intervention in World War II in Europe was moral and necessary. So what to do? Well, I think Joe Biden should definitely not give them $6 billion. I think that's a good start. I think that sanctions is probably appropriate. But I also think that we have to be really clear that Iran is an enemy of the United States, but it pales in comparison to the immediate and the pernicious and the existential threat that the Chinese Communist Party poses to America. And I don't want to see us get into the Lindsey Graham dream world that Iran is somehow murdering Americans. They are financing terror. They're chanting death to America. But China right now is actively creating fentanyl that comes into our country that kills over 100,000 people. Not everyone for fentanyl, but drug overdoses.
Majority, yeah.
Yes, over a majority of the 100,000 is fentanyl. What I'm getting at is I, as a millennial turning 30, know nothing but Middle Eastern no-win war quagmires, right?
Yep.
And I am cynical, and I think it's my moral responsibility and my public role as a commentator to slow down the chatter anytime we're talking about accelerating us closer to another conflict in the Middle East. Because we did it in Iraq. I think it was a mistake. We spent trillions of dollars and we lost precious American lives, led to ISIS. And you want the thought crime? Honestly, Saddam Hussein kept a lot of the terrorists in check.
Yep.
They were scared of him.
He was a bad guy, but he wasn't the worst guy. And I think the same thing in Afghanistan. So what do? I think first we have to calm down the neoconservatives that are bloodthirsty and want war more than they want what's best for America.
Yeah, you know what is this is actually